Most people have heard about the shot heard round the world. That shot was the shot that was the start of the American Revolutionary War. Why? Because it changed the world. America is out now changing the world once again. And the latest shot was just fired at Canada, but it was fired with a silencer. A tweet came out from the Under Secretary of War, a man by the name of Eldridge Colby. He sent it off to Canada. Here's what he says. A strong Canada that prioritizes hard power over rhetoric benefits us all. Unfortunately, Canada has failed to make credible progress on its defense commitments. The Department of War is pausing the Permanent Joint Board on Defense to reassess how this forum benefits the shared North American defense. This is the quiet shot heard round the world. Why? Well, let me tell you some of the inside. My name's Ross McLean. I'm former law enforcement, former bodyguard to billionaires. I used to work for some of the largest companies in the world, protect some of the most secure places in the world. And I've been involved with security and intelligence and counterintelligence and strategy and operations for a long time. And I also make it a habit to study war, strategy, violence, geopolitics. Let's talk about it. Let's get into it right now, what this shot is that just came at Canada. First of all, one of the things you learn as a special operations type of person or a bodyguard is you learn to read the room really well. You learn to look at people, size them up, and determine how much do I have to worry about what this person does or says or what are they capable of. And if you're good, you figure that out. You watch for the small signals. In bodyguard work, it could be as simple as when someone's shoulder comes back like this as you're walking up. Well, the next thing that follows is a punch. So you see that shoulder go back, you're already acting. But what about words? Credible words that come from somebody. In this case, these words from the Undersecretary of War, Eldridge Colby. I don't think that Carney or Canada understands who they're dealing with. You have to pay attention to the messenger as much as the message here. Who is Eldridge Colby? People might not recognize the name. I decided to look into it. He is none other than the grandson of the great William Colby, who was one of the original people in the OSS, which was the predecessor to the CIA in the US. And he also worked in the CIA when it was first founded, and then he ran the CIA for 2 years underneath George Bush Jr. He's kind of like royalty in the CIA, and this is his grandson. He named him Eldridge after the great-grandfather who served in the military over in the UK and in America in the past. He's no ordinary messenger here. He had gone on in his life to study at Harvard, Yale. He grew up in Japan doing work. He studied war. In fact, he was the author of the US's most recent strategic defense report for the entire US for how they do their strategy for war, for the entire globe. He was one of the authors of it. He's in fact written his own book talking about how war is going to go forward in the future. And in that book, he talks about how it's no longer just fighting enemies. We have to think of people not as enemies and countries not as enemies, but as competitors. And how do they compete? Do they compete fairly? Are they with us or against us? This is one of the things he talks about. And he brought up China as one of the worst offenders that the US has to deal with. And now he sees fit to bring up Canada. But this isn't the first time he's brought up Canada. He's brought up Canada before. He's had his eye on this. So here's an interview that Eldridge Colby gave to a political magazine a couple of years ago. And he says he doesn't really think that much about Canada. He says, but I'm going to quote him here. I'll be very frank. I don't think it would be prudent for Canada to be perceived as hedging between the United States and China. As an ally to the United States, there's an expectation level already set. If we go back to the issue of resolve, America is going to care a lot more about what Canada does than China is going to at the end of the day. So if Canada is perceived as equivocating, that there's actually a confrontation that affects the United States and Canada is perceived as equivocating, I think that's very risky for Canada. So what he was saying years ago was, you better not stray away from the US and start palling around with China. Well, what has Mark Carney done? And it's of note that in the tweet that he put out, he included a link to Mark Carney's Davos speech. Let's remember, what did Carney talk about in Davos? What has actually most of his life been about, Carney? I've got other videos of this on my channel, but he's been a China friend. There's no bigger political friend to China in the entire world than Mark Carney. He worked to advance their dollar, and Carney actually works against the US dollar as being the standard reserve currency. He gave a speech in Colorado a number of years ago where he talks about that he wanted to see the US dollar replaced as the standard currency. Now, Trump, I remember, famously said, if you want to work against the US dollar, then we're going to war. That's what Trump said before when BRICS was looking at doing something. But here's Carney saying it. What else has Carney been doing? His Davos speech says the US has ruptured, they can't be trusted, they're not the power anymore. And he also goes on to talk about how Canada should be pairing with China as a strategic partner and with Europe. And maybe Canada should join Europe to work against the US to run the world. Carney is openly running an association, talks, plans, and actions to fight against the US. Well, if he wanted attention for it, I think he's got it right here. So this Colby says they're going to put a pause on the Permanent Joint Defense Board between Canada and the US. What is that? It's a board that was started in 1940 when Canada was going to war. The US wasn't at war yet with World War II, and it was about how to help protect Canada. And since then, it's gone on to be a meeting that takes place that decides how best to secure the Western Hemisphere, particularly the Northern Western Hemisphere. It's been involved in the Dewey Line, the Distance Early Warning System, in NORAD, in missile protection, in radar. All sorts of issues have been discussed by this board. Now, the ones who sit on this board as well, who come in to take part in it, you name the top defense agencies, the top security agencies, the top fighting agencies in the U.S., from ICE, Homeland Security, all of the intelligence communities, the National Defense Community, they all come and partake in this Joint Defense Initiative. And they all work together on it to protect. And now the head of that has said, we're pausing it. We don't like where Canada is going. Because Carney's playing games. Oh, I'm going to make my 2% money for what I'm supposed to put towards NATO, right? What did he do? He rolled over the Coast Guard in there. I guess he included ordering 5 years worth of tampons for the men's bathrooms. He played all kinds of games about decarbonizing the military and including that as being actual war fighting. Well, guess what? This guy here, Elbridge, Colby, understands what war fighting really is. And I have to tell you, when it comes to a guy like Carney, when he starts wanting to play these games with the U.S., he's a lightweight. It's a bit like Mike Tyson would always say, that everybody has a plan on how to fight with me and take me on, he says, until I punch him in the face. Then their plans change. Well, the U.S. is the big dog here, and Carney wants to yap at it. And this is the first warning shot that's been fired. Now, what I want to say here is, as I said, I've been around a little bit. If you don't know about executive speak, how senior people talk and they destroy someone's reputation, this is a prime example of it here. One of the things I learned this a long time ago, I was working in a position, I had gotten a new person placed over me who was really no good. I didn't like that they put this guy in the position. I didn't feel he was qualified for it. And I had the vice president coming to meet with me, and I was going to have an opportunity to spend about 2 days with this vice president, who was also this guy's boss. I said to a friend of mine, man, I'm going to tell this guy what I think of him, how this guy is no good. He sucks at this. He can't do this. And my friend said to me, who knew executive speak, he said, Ross, you're going to do no such thing. You're going to say one sentence to the VP about him. He's going to ask you about him. How's he working out? And you're just going to say this. Well, he's pretty good, but he's a little weak in a couple of areas. And then just move on, he says. He says that's all you have to say to somebody senior. They get the message. That's the way they talk. To say that you're weak to a senior person is the equivalent of putting a bullet in you just about for how good you are at your job. And here we have this quiet little pause. We're just going to pause this board. Understand the message, understand the messenger, and understand the context of who this guy is. I mean, his grandfather was so famous, they made movies about him. They wrote books about him. He did just about everything. And this guy is following in his footsteps. Trump appointed him. This guy has a lot of leverage. And he's saying Carney is full of rhetoric and talk. So that's the real story of what's going on here with this tweet. It's not just a little message. It's who the messenger is in the context of the message. And now when they're no longer saying it privately, because you know this has been said privately before they go publicly like this, people have been warned in the Canadian government about the direction that it's going. Now they're speaking publicly about it, and they're taking a public move on it. Let's see where this goes. I don't think it's going to end up very well for Mark Carney. This is Ross McLean for the McLean Chronicles. If you like the content I have on my channel, please like and subscribe and follow. And let me know what you think about the way Canada tries to conduct itself as a middle power who wants to snack next to the giant China, who Trump just did the biggest deal in the world with. And Carney thinks he's going to win.